We were there.
Call to order the Siloam Springs Board of Directors pre-agenda meeting this November 12th, 2024. Roll call.
Blair. Here. Long.
Here?
Wiles. Hunt. Rissler.
Here.
Allen. Carroll.
Here.
Thank you. And before we get started, I am going to ask everyone to make sure that they silence their phones so that we don't have that interruption during our meeting. And with that, we will move into our pre-agenda meeting. And Alan, I will turn the floor over to you.
Hey, thank you, Madam Mayor. Agenda tonight, we'll go over consent. The first one will go to C, annual chemical bids, Public Works Department. Kevin will give you an update what that is.
Kevin Moore, Public Works. So both of our treatment plants annually put out bids for the chemicals that we use throughout the year. This year, for the first time, you'll see that instead of doing sealed bids, we've done what's called a reverse internet auction, where the bidders, the suppliers, can see what their position is, whether they're the low bid or not for an item, and so they can actually go and say if they know their position number 3, they can submit a new bid for that material and try to be the lowest bidder for that. And we have seen lower prices based off of doing it this way, and we'll continue to do that in the future. But this is the distinction for this year. It's the change in that process.
Questions for Kevin on that? And moving on to D is City of Siloam Springs, Arkansas Public Education Facilities Board. John Brown University, Cameron Slater is a reappointment. So again, that's just a reappointment. He can continue to serve on that board. Any questions there? If not, moving on to E, that's appointments, Park Advisory Board. Holly Wiles and Mike Henry, both are reappointments. Any questions there? If not, on to contract and approvals. First one's F, Budget Amendment, Fire Department, ALS 360 Striker Lease Program, cardiac monitors, cots, loaders, and Lucas devices, $151,000. Chief, you want to come up and give them an update?
Madam Mayor, Board, Dustin Kendall, Fire Chief. So this would be, originally in the budget, we had budgeted $165,000 that we were going to go in with the police department and do a dispatch console for a radio. That bid or that quote came back way high for Motorola. And the PD was actually able to find out another radio for the dispatch console, so we were going to not do that project. In talking with some other departments, we have some really expensive equipment on our ambulances that we need to update and replace every so often. Typically around 5 to 8 years is that replacement period that we need. That equipment includes cardiac monitors, our cots, our auto load systems, which saves firefighters' backs. It automatically picks the cot up and loads it in instead of the fireman picking the cot up and putting it in the back of the rig. And then the Lucas device, which is a manual or automatic CPR machine. Those things come in at a lot of money. And when we've used the life out of that equipment, it's obsolete or it's not serviceable anymore, and the value is not very much. So we started exploring options to lease that equipment. In doing so, through Stryker, it's called the ALS 360 lease program, but basically it covers us and locks us into a price at today's pricing for the period of 10 years. It is 2 5-year leases, if you will. At year 5, Stryker actually comes in and takes out all those 4 pieces of equipment on all of our ambulances and replaces it with updated, the latest and greatest equipment for those 4 things: cots, autoloaders, cardiac monitors, and our Lucas devices. Total savings will be around $140,000 over the period of 10 years. But the biggest savings is that we're locking in that price today instead of paying the inflation over what 10 years would be. To my knowledge, there's only one other fire department in the state of Arkansas that's done this, and that was Springdale Fire Department. I've spoken with their chief. He's extremely excited about it. Their board approved their lease program with Stryker, so that would be, the amendment to next year's budget would be this value, $151,000, which is a little less than what we were gonna spend on the dispatch console. But then I would budget that every year for the next 10 years. It would just be earmarked for the next 10 years out of our STFE funds for the remainder of that 10 years. So, and that does cover all service, all maintenance, any piece of equipment that goes down, they drive us another piece of equipment from Tulsa and put it back on a truck so we can get that back in service as quick as we can. So I think it's a really good deal, and I'm available for any questions.
Justin, did you give them the overall savings that we'll do in the 10 years? I stepped away for a second, I didn't hear it.
Yep, so the overall savings would be about $140,000 over that 10 years. Now, that's not including whatever inflation would be. I brought Captain Hansen with me. He's our EMS captain of our training, but we're seeing just this year was 8% increase in our EMS supplies overall.
Roughly, yes.
So it could be as low as 5, it could be as much as 8, we don't know, but it's getting up there, so.
So, directors, I know that I think all of you pretty much have a question, so,
I don't care. I can be last. I don't care.
okay. We'll start with you, Betsy, and then come around.
So is that 151,000 every year?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
And that's cheaper than buying the equipment? That's the 140,000 over the 10-year period is?
Correct.
Okay.
If we were to buy it outright and then go to replace it again in year 5, what we would be facing is whatever increase that pricing would be 5 years down the road from today, we would be paying that much more for that equipment. Stryker guesstimates around 5% every year. Like I was saying, we've seen 8. When we bought our last LifePak, our cardiac monitors, their LifePak 15s, we paid 40 or 45,000.
Yes, correct.
The ones that they're coming out with, if we do this lease, is the cardiac monitors we'd be getting, is now cost 65,000. So we've seen a tremendous
Directors, just-
increase in price. And our monitors, they work, but they're not serviceable anymore. They're just obsolete.
Just so you know, directors, when I was talking to Chief about this, this is something that will come out of their STFE, so he'll have to budget for that in the future and not affect the general budget.
Lisa?
That was my question. Where's it coming? He answered it.
Very good. Reed?
Did I read that we've got a couple ambulance on the way?
We do.
Okay, will this be included?
That,
Okay.
this would outfit our new ambulances as well, as the 2 that we're going to keep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mark?
Well, I'm going to open up a can of worms, and in my history, I have seen the city take single bids, and this looks like a single bid to me. And they'll say, for example, and I'm just throwing numbers out, but it's happened, the fuel tank has to be 41 gallons, whereas the Ford was 41 and the Chevy was 38. So they, you make the bid where only one company can bid. And I'm not saying anyone broke the law, but there was accusations of kickback funds for such things. So tell me what you did, why that doesn't affect this single lease, and what you did and who bid on this and what the numbers were comparable.
Absolutely. So for the last, since 2012, I think was the last LifePak 15 we got.
2012 or 14.
We used to run what they call Zoll monitors. Then we went to Stryker for a provider for these LifePak monitors. The reason I would go with Stryker and why we did talk with Stryker was because they service our COTS, our auto loads, in our current cardiac monitors and have for some time. We have a service contract with them. But they're also a part of Sourcewell. And so Sourcewell is why we went with Stryker. Also, we've had dealings with Zoll, and I don't want to talk bad about one company or anything. We just did not prefer them, the workability of their machine. And we just see better results with our paramedics with this Stryker equipment.
If I could.
Yeah.
I've also spoken with some battalion chief of EMS of different departments here in the area who have used different brand cots other than Stryker, such as Furno, and they used them for approximately 3 or 4 years, and they're already so upset with them, they're getting rid of them.
So how many, I mean, there's more than one thing, it's not just COTS, but how many options are there besides Stryker?
To my knowledge, it's only 2. There is Stryker and Furno.
And how many companies provide those brands?
Forgive me, to my knowledge, Furno is sold more wholesale, and Stryker only sells Stryker products. No one else sells Stryker products.
I don't mean to be, and I apologize for not coming and seeing you ahead of time. So you're telling me this legitimately is the only brand you would use, and this is the only company that would be able to provide this to us?
I would say yes. This is the company I would prefer to use, but I will do some research and get back to you on that.
Fantastic.
And
Thank you.
find out if anybody else offers the same package, if you will.
Thank you.
Hey, Chief, you might want to explain Sourcewell, where they find the lowest price, and kind of, when you do that, Sourcewell is doing a lot of that work for you. And that may be new to you, Director. I'm not sure if they had that.
Yeah, I've not heard of Sourcewell, and legitimately what I'm asking for, if you're wondering, where's he headed with this, is to be above and beyond suspicion of any kind of impropriety, and that's what I'm getting at. I want the citizens to know this is what we have to have, the other one doesn't work right, and this is the only, or we have checked with everyone, and this is the best price. That's what I'm hitting at.
Absolutely.
And that's why we're using Sourcewell. They do a lot of that legwork to make sure those questions you're answering, and it's above board. So that's why we go through Sourcewell.
Anyone else?
Questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to Kevin, if you want to come up and talk about G for the digester 2 and 3 improvements, Public Works Department, wastewater division.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Kevin Moore, Public Works. This is the contract for a bid to replace some parts in the digesters for digesters 2 and 3. There are 5 out at the wastewater plant, and these are out of operation. And so this would bring those back into operation so that we could use them again. You will notice that the low bid is disqualified because they did not include labor in their bid. That was only for the parts. So we disqualified the lowest bidder and are going with the low bid from Clean Infusion. Staff's recommending approval, and we're available for any questions.
Thank you, sir. Directors? We were good.
We're letting you off
It's
easy.
not as fun to talk about sewage.
All right, there's no questions and contracts approvals. Move on to ordinances. The first ordinance it's a third reading, 24-30. Ben? If you just want to go ahead and hit both of those, we'll hit
Yep, I'll do it
HNI.
really. Yeah, this is, first one, 2420 is just the annexation out at Heritage Ranch. That's going on its third reading. We have not had any comments since the second reading, and we're still recommending approval. And then the 2431 is the vacation of the right-of-way out at the 800 block of South Lincoln Street. And that's the same status. We are still recommending approval and no additional comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions about those 2 readings? All right, easy on us today. Janae, if you don't mind, I'm done with the agenda. I don't even want to go back there. The agenda, but I want to just give you guys some updates. Janae, if you want to just address the runoff and what we've learned.
Yes, sir. I spoke with the Election Commission. The early voting for the runoff election for the at-large 5 and 6 will take place November 27th through December 2nd, with the exception of Thanksgiving. They will be closed. They will only be doing early voting at the Benton County office here in Salem Springs on Lincoln Street from 8:30 to 4:30 for early voting. On December 3rd, all 3 locations will be open. That will be the Community Building, St. Mary's Catholic Church, as well as the Benton County Clerk's Office. They will be open from 7:30 to 7:30 on December 3rd for the runoff election.
So give those dates one more time, if you don't mind, Ms. Janae.
Yes, sir. November 27th through December 2nd will be early voting from 8:30 to 4:30. December 3rd, we'll be voting all 3 locations from 7:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m.
So thank you, Ms. Janae. Any
Welcome.
questions for her? All right. One of the other
Mayor?
things I,
Yes, Reed.
That is also our first meeting in December, but I don't think we need to move the meeting for any particular reason.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Mark.
I agree completely.
Thank you, sir. So we will not have a meeting about moving our date. We will move forward with our regular meeting on November 3rd.
well, all right, if some changes,
Yes.
please let us know. I just want to run something that we're dealing with, and I just want to let the board know to start thinking about it. This is something I need, after the Oklahoma land sale, and hopefully, our goal is to hopefully have that completed in the month of December by the first of the year. And it looks like everything will be completed with that sale, as long as something else does. We think we had some misspellings or something, but they're working through in a survey, but we're finishing up on that. So we're hoping to have that closed in the next couple of weeks. But when we got that, we were actually got a lawsuit for adverse possession. So we've been working on that, and that does not include anything in this sale that we can find. The person that we have this with, they're in a 99-year lease, and they have 30 years remaining on that lease. We're probably looking at 2 to 2.5 years of, 2 to 2.5 acres. This is the Oklahoma property. And just know they have 30 years remaining on this 99, and in this contract, they have the right to renew another 99 years, okay? Again, with tort immunity and everything. So with Jay, and we've been talking to them, and they made an offer to us. It's something I would like to bring to the board, just to see where you guys are and what you're willing to do. I don't mind sharing that with you. I think the total was like $2,200. And what they're letting me know is, since they've had this with property taxes, closing costs, they put about $26,000 in that property. And what we sold that property probably, and don't hold me to this number, I don't have it exact, I think it was like $3,500. This is something I'd like to go back and maybe sell the 2.5 acres for $3,500. Again, it has, if we don't sell it, we could be looking at a claim like this again, or again, we can't do anything with the land because they're possibly going to have it tied up for the next 140 years, 138 years, somewhere in there. So this is something I just want to, that we have been going back and forth, and Jay just sent me some emails. I will make sure that I make a copy of this and make it very clear what we're looking at. But I just wanted something you to start thinking about.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Alan, is this property that was originally, at least when the lake was there, underwater?
It's property that I'm not sure is in the floodplain. It's in the floodplain, of course.
So
but I
will
wanna
this
get you
board
an
lease
exact-
to somebody for 200 years a piece of our property that was lakefront?
I'm not really sure when they did that, but I know they have 30 years left, so that tells me they've had it for a long time.
Wow.
And when the option, this is, Director, is they have the right to renew in this contract for another 99 years. And what I want to do is, I started thinking about this. So this is just for thought. I want to get you a picture exactly where the land is, where you know everything. But I got these emails, and I've got to get this ball moving forward, whatever direction the board wants to go on this. And so, again, I'll start giving you information, showing you exactly where it is, and give you as much information. Chris, do you have anything on that, or Kevin, that I'm missing? So I'll get you everything that I can. I just wanted you to start thinking about this. Again, that's the offer they made us. Our council thinks that's, That is his direction that he would give us, is to sell the property. But again, that is your choice.
Madam Mayor?
Betsy?
Just to be clear, so we lease the property, but they're going for adverse possession at the same time? How can
think
they
you
do adverse possession while they're leasing the property?
And again, when Jay comes, we'll talk a little further, because he's been a part of these negotiations. I had him look into it. I think in the adverse possession is because they've been living on the property so long.
But if
even
it's
though-
been rented, and I looked it up, have they been paying taxes on it? Because that's one of the requirements is.
That's what they say in the email, they've been paying taxes. That's a part of the $26,000 they said they've put into this property already by leasing it. And I think that's what Jay found is you're leasing this, and I think he gave a good argument that I don't think we would lose it in adverse possession.
Right, because have we been paying taxes on it too?
I don't think we are, I'd have to check that.
Okay. The other thing is, I mean, since I think, if I'm remembering correctly, the other land was sold for $22.50 an acre.
You might be right, I don't remember the number off the top of my head.
Yeah.
That sounds more correct.
So are they looking at $22.50 for all 3 acres or $22.50 an acre?
The offer I'm looking at here says a total of $2,200.
Seems like they should at least pay, I mean, that's still really cheap if it's $22.50 an acre.
And I want to get you a picture and show exactly where the land is. And again, I'd received this just a while back, and I think I got it on November 8th, and I'm just now, first time I get in front of all of you with this. And I'll do a little homework on it, and I think you're exactly correct. I think we did sell that, and I'll get you exact price, what we've been selling that property for. Because it doesn't ring a bell right now, but it sounds right, $22.50.
So is there any other property that's going to come up for adverse possession?
I hope not. And again,
This has
that's
happened 4 or 5 times, so it definitely, I don't know how much land we still own down there, but we had lost at least 100 acres at one point, and in this very same thing, we let somebody mow the hay, and we didn't even get any money for it, and lost the land because we let them use our land. And so I'm not much one to give in because somebody thinks they can bully us a little bit, so anyway.
Right, and you are correct. I remember we lost 100 acres, and there was some other adverse possession. My goal, what I'd like to see the board do going forward, is that we only own Oklahoma property that is around our water intake that we need for that, where we don't have to, and that's what
For the
we're pretty
citizens to
close.
know, there was a time when you had to own acres to get so much water per acre for the city's use. And at one time, we needed to own all that land. Now, they have since changed the wording of that law, and so just because we're a city, we get the rights. But there was a time when you needed to own X number of acres per 1,000 gallons.
But I think that's correct. And one of the things when we sold this Oklahoma property, that was our goal. I was hoping we owned no other land except, and then this came up. And when it first happened, I was concerned it'd be a part of the property, but it's not. So let me do a little bit of homework on it. And if you have questions, please email me, call me, let me know, but I'll try to get you that information. I just want you to start thinking about it, where we would stand, what our stand would be.
So,
Again,
I
I would
know
like to see
by-
us get rid of it. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
wow, no, I'm sorry, I thought you were. So I know there are certain requirements that we have to own land now along, the water intake. I don't remember off the top of my head what it was. So that land, is it going to be subject to adverse possession? Because that's like a law or something, we have
No.
to own that land, so.
We had those conversations, and I don't think so, but that's something else. I'll get Jay, and we'll make sure, because he's been a part of this and legally. But that's a good question. But I remember when we were at the land sale, that was our concern, but I was told, no, we could not, being a part of our water intake. But we'll double check that.
But the land that's around all that, are we not making an easement where they can't change it back to,
Conservation
yeah,
easement attached to the
conservation?
sale.
So even, no matter if they try to, you can't, that's with the land. If somebody
Correct. When we
was
sold it,
to take our land, they can't take that away, no matter what they do.
Yeah, we made that very clear when we sold to be a conservation easement and
It-
for
it's even
education.
land we own.
Yep.
Doing a conservation easement on all of it.
Perpetuity.
That's
so
part of the
it's-
agreement. And
Yeah.
so even if people, if we have a piece of land, when it's a conservation easement, that's federal. They can't.
We did it for the land we sold. I didn't know we did it for the land we're keeping.
We're doing all of it, aren't we? That's what is giving it the protection that somebody can't come in and hurt our waterways.
I understand, but I'm just not recalling doing a conservation easement for what we already own also. I remember it for the sale.
And I'll double check. That's a
For
good
what we're
question,
keeping.
Director. That's good. I know, remember talking about our we didn't have to worry about our water intake, but I don't want to tell you something I'm not 100% on.
Alan, could you email us the lease? I'd like to see the original lease that we signed away all these rights. And also, I'd like to see the offer, the actual
Yeah,
offer.
the lease on the adverse possession?
Yes.
Okay. I'll send it to all the board.
Well, I've been involved with this in a lot of years, and the biggest problem is we own water rights in a different state. We're in Arkansas, there's in Oklahoma, so we are less familiar with the state laws, and we're less familiar with, and we didn't tend to use it. We wanted the water, we didn't tend to use the actual land or the banks of the lake. And so it's always been a bit complicated, and I can remember back in the early 70s, you could rent, and it might have been leased, I don't remember, you could rent a campsite and go down and fish and boat, and lots and lots and lots of people did that. It was easy to do, and it was not, you had to kind of take care of it, mow it and such, but the city leased out that a lot, and I'm kind of curious if that's what we did here. It was just land we didn't want to use, we just needed to own it, and it's kind of been a thorn in our side for a long time.
And along with the lease agreement, can you send a copy of this offer that's come in from the people who are using it, please?
Yeah, it's an email, but I can
Okay.
send you a copy of that, just
Thank you.
where that's just what the offer they had sent me. And again, I just wanted this to start, you guys start thinking about it, what we want to do, and again, 30 years on a 99, they have 30 years left on a 99-year lease, and then they're going to tie it up for another 99 years. Thing with it. I don't think any of us were here then. So, hey, any other questions there? But I will get you that. The other, I just wanted to make the board aware that the board, I guess, a couple years ago, when WOCA was being built, talked about dedicating the easements. So that's here. I've got the dedication deed, and I just want to let the board know that the mayor will be signing that. What that is the WOCA Trail on our side of Oklahoma that we will give, we're giving them an easement in case, as a city, if you ever decide to sell that property, it would not include the trail. So this is just an easement for that. So I just wanted to make you aware that if you, just any conversation with the mayor, will be signing that. I'm just letting you know. Okay.
Good.
And that's it. And there's just one other thought that came to me too. I think you would be new to this, Director Long. Even some of you with the Manus Center, that we had back, they're wanting to expand and build a building on the property they've been leasing to us, and they were told they could do that, so I'm starting the paperwork on that. Also, that they would basically be leasing that property from us and be able to build that building, and it would be a long lease, but that's just something the board said they would do. I went through it all, but as that comes closer, I'll make sure you're all up to date exactly what we're doing and what we're said, but I know Miss Marla's called me on that a couple times, and so I'm preparing that, and I know they're pretty serious because they've run out of room. And I think that one time they were looking to, at the Salvation Army, or not Salvation Army,
They were looking at the Boys and Girls Club.
The
you
Boys
know,
and Girls Club.
If we ended up doing something different with that, but that
Right.
did not materialize, so.
did not.
This was the other part of that agreement, that we would do that, so.
I think that's it. And then, again, the state of the city, guys, if you haven't done a video and want to do a video, Miss Megan can help you this afternoon. She may be able to sneak you in the morning. But again, you don't have to do that. It was a way the state of the city and, staff and I are excited about it. It's just to brag on what we're doing, what we've done this in the past months. Today is people said a year and a half. No, I think today is actually a year and 3 months today. So maybe it feels longer. But again, excited for that. And again, it's just a quick video, just whatever, you want to say, or she can help you with that as a director. I just think it's important as you sitting on the board, you have an opportunity to address the city. So I think Mayor and staff, if you don't have anything, turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Nothing else, staff? No one wants to just come up and speak to the board about anything?
Not everybody at once.
Oh, directors, any other comments or questions from you? Yes, Lisa?
I have two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Lake Francis update. You know you're going to get that. So
He already had that look on this morning when I asked him that.
I drove on it today.
I know. I still got a call from the first thing this morning, 8:30 this morning. I got a call. When are they going to start again? They've started, but then they stopped.
They were working out there this morning. We had a curb inspection. I believe the last of the curb that has to be formed up has been formed, and they should be placing concrete, if not today, and then tomorrow. As far as I know, they're still on pace to pave that last stretch this weekend, but as soon as we have that confirmed, we'll put out a public update.
And when Kevin says pave that last stretch, if you've been on Lake Francis, there's a section that hasn't been paved. Once they get this paved, hopefully this weekend, then they'll go back and they'll put the extras, 1.5 inches, 2 inches.
Yes, so their plan is to finish, so each of the side streets on that last couple hundred feet under that first binder layer, it's 3.5 inches thick. And then once all the asphalt's down, they'll have one final 2.5 inch surface layer that they'll put down across the whole job.
I think they were finishing some curbing today, and then they had some manholes that have been the issues that we're trying to get cut down. So we've worked through all that.
I actually have three things, not two.
Well,
So that was one.
Go right ahead, that's one.
I number them now, so I can get them all in. Another phone call I got today, and staff might know something about this, I don't know. And I have had a couple of people make comments about the railroad stopping in town for hours, like 4, 5, 6 hours in main areas. Yeah, you're looking like you know what I'm talking about. So obviously, have we had any conversations with have we had any conversations with the railroad company?
There's not a lot we can be done there. We can make calls, and it's pretty tough. I've been dealing with that for
Yeah,
years.
they pretty much put us on
It's
notice.
very
that-
aggravating. I
Yep,
understand.
They put us on notice that whenever this new company bought the railroad, that Siloam Springs would be one of the cities that would have longer trains coming through. They would be more time in our city.
Why do they stop in our city? Is it the only place that they can pass? Because it seems like there's other areas. There what?
This one was broke down. They had a malfunction. It was broke.
This morning? But it's like that every day. It's not,
It's
it's,
pretty often.
It's right next to the sanitation, so they see it a lot. Jason's saying that's what happened today.
but that's not the only place they can pass because there's a lot of areas that there's double tracks. So why are they stopping so much in just Siloam? And are they not supposed to be building some kind of a thing that keeps it moving longer? Do you know what I'm talking about? There's supposed to be a new, I have a relative that works at the railroad.
That's something I would have to check into. I don't know, Chris, Kevin, have you guys heard? I haven't heard any of that.
Okay.
But we do get some complaints on that.
There was a law at one time that X number of hours they had to uncouple and open up the roadway. Is that not still?
Sometimes they are sitting 3 to 5 hours, and they've had people that live close to those
Well,
say,
I
I'm having to
think
drive
that's
all
the
the way
length of
around."
time. I think it's 6 hours, but after so many hours, there is a law that says they're supposed to uncouple. I don't know how many hours. It's a lot. It's not 30 minutes. It's 4 or 5 hours.
I
But-
get tickled when you said that, because I remember a town next door, it was a very small town, and that chief over there of that four-man department decided that he was going to stop the railroad and give him a piece of his mind and block the railroad with his police car. That did not go over very well. So when you said that, it just tickled me, because I remember getting that call.
Don't want to go that drastic,
It
but
just, it did not go well for
we could
him.
have conversations, that'd
Yeah.
be great.
While we're
That's
talking
something I
about the
can try to
railroad,
reach out and, with this new company, and but I don't think there's a lot we can do, and ties up our traffic, definitely does.
I spoke to a ladies group this morning, and they had a question concerning the railroad on Kenwood, or on Lake Francis. Is there going to be anything done to help at the railroad crossing? As it is now, you kind of go up and down, and,
We've had that conversation.
Yeah.
Kevin, you want to kind of give them an update on that?
My hope is to reach out to the railroad and get permission to do several of our railroad crossings. And there are several that are in pretty bad shape. They recently redid the one on Lincoln Street. That was the railroad company that instigated that, but something similar for like Tahlequah, Kenwood, Lake Francis, some of those crossings that have aged poorly over the years. And then that's kind of a two-prong, or there are two sides to that. There's the widening side, which they may or may not let us do, because there's quite a bit of cost associated with that. And then there's just the kind of mill and overlay, rebuild the asphalt side just so that it's a smoother transition.
Smoother.
And that's likely in the short run more what we would target doing.
That one is really bad right there, though.
yeah, it is. And these little ladies are not very happy. They're,
Having lived in this town a long time, I remember when there was one way around.
that's right.
And it's the worst one now. And somebody not so very many years ago built the one that is out on Sherry Whitlock. And thank you for all the people that got involved with that and to give us a third option that really improved our ambulance and fire service, because they had the bridge there. Somebody went to a lot of effort and really did us a big favor when they built that bridge.
And I think you're not quite finished, but I think, Reed, do you have a question that concerns the railroad? Is that,
Yes.
okay? So if we go to him and get that, okay.
When we look to do renovation on the railroad crossings, will it include pedestrian?
Hopefully. Kansas City Southern has kind of historically been pretty opposed to any sort of railroad pedestrian crossings at grade. I don't know Canadian Pacific's standpoint on that. That's not a discussion we've had yet, but the hope is that we would get some pedestrian crossings as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, this
Got the railroad?
is,
Go ahead.
yeah. When the work is done on the crossings, will they also be turned into, and I can't remember the proper terminology, quiet zones, or you know what I'm talking about?
That would be I think if we were rebuilding and widening at those, because that is a very expensive upgrade that we would have to look at doing while widening those crossings. So again, I think in the short term, we would rebuild those to make the transitions smoother and more manageable. And then in the long term, we would look at quiet zones and making sure that, because most of our railroad crossings narrow down, and we've improved the street to either side and not been able to improve the actual railroad crossing. So when we look at quiet zones, I think we would widen those, because it about doubles the cost of the railroad crossing itself because of all the fail-safes they have to have.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Lisa?
The last one is, so there was a little bit of confusion. I think we moved meetings, we've moved expectations, and so we have the city administrator's job description. Is there a deadline for that, or are we discussing it? Are we going into executive session? I just need some clarification.
Or his evaluation?
Yeah, because is the deadline like this Friday, the 15th, or is it because we're going to be are we discussing it on the 19th?
It is going to be on our agenda for the 19th for an executive session for that purpose.
So so the deadline, that would be probably meet HR's needs because of distribution and being able to have time to read it and discuss it. Friday is,
That's
does that work for the
realistic.
directors?
That's realistic. if, you know, I think if you're turning one in, that by this Friday, that would be a good deadline, because that gives us time then before the meeting. And I see Misty shaking her head, yes.
So I will get mine in, I haven't. I've been busy, and the purpose is to give direction to the city administrator. We can't have expectations without setting those. And so it's good to put them in writing, what our expectations are. But I apologize that I have not got mine in, but I will get mine in, so I'm so sorry that I've been. But, okay, now I know the expectation, because it was kind of left up in the air, and we had no
Right.
conclusion.
So that would be the 15th. That's
Okay.
Friday is the 15th.
That worked for me.
Yes, Alan?
Just, and one last thing, to give you the board an update too. I've had a couple meetings about Don Hill. The letters have been sent out. We're trying to work through some issues. But again, right now, we're looking at a possible cutoff. Now, we are having the 15th of January, but just where you know, Kevin and Water noticed, and we let some of the POA know this morning that we're seeing some pressure, that we're not at where the pressure needs to be. If the pressure goes down anymore, we may have to be forced to turn it off. If not, we could go into a boil order. And just where the board knows, when you hear 1 million gallons, so I came up with an analogy. When you hear 1 million gallons a month, we all know what a swimming pool looks like, right? A 30-foot round swimming pool, 4 feet deep. The water in a swimming pool 30 feet round is 23,793 gallons. And that's, I mean, we're losing 1 million gallons, so you're looking at 46, 48 swimming pools, somewhere in there, 40 to 48, just a month. And again, like I explained to the folks this morning, all that water leaking out, that's a pretty significant leak, is deteriorating, and we're starting to see almost a sinkhole, or things are starting to cave in over there because it's constantly washing things out. So the problem's getting worse and worse. So again, I'm up against, do I let the water continue? But again, the letter went out. As long as the pressure stays where it be, our plan is they get it fixed, get 15th. But if that water pressure goes down, we let them know this morning that they could come off sooner. I'm hoping that doesn't happen.
Lisa?
I do want to say something on that. A lot of times people don't realize everything that we work on. And it seems like, oh, you're not doing anything, but there's been a lot of work being into the Don Hill. There's been a lot of work being put into the Coons Addition recently. For a long time, we have avoided the conversation. And this is a part of our community. And there's environmental issues, there's water leaks, there's all kinds of issues that people have avoided. I have no idea why, if it was political reasons or, I have no idea. But now that it's all been dumped, and I do appreciate the staff and Alan. I've sat in those meetings, and there's a lot to it. It's not just, there's a lot to what's going on, and I appreciate that we are finally doing something about it, and we are not ignoring the issues anymore. So in order for us to move forward and make our city, our community, everything it should be, and everything we want to be recognized for, we need to take care of the things that hadn't been taken care of. And those are two major issues. Major, they're not minor, there's nothing minor about either one of them. They are major issues that are being dealt with head-on for the first time in years, and I've been dealing with the Don Hill since 2020. And so, thanks.
And I think Jay, our city attorney, gave them some guidance that I thought was very good. Some things, maybe a different way to look at it and what they can do. And again, I think we're all just working together to resolve this. I mean, the last thing I want to do is cut the water off. But if you look at that map where our water main, it doesn't just go straight to like it does to me and Mark. We've got to go all the way around to get to Rector Long. So there's just a lot of work and I mean, we just have a lot of issues that we've got to, hopefully we can get in there. Just, again, I'm in one of those situations, even if they give us permission, I still can't spend public city money to go in there and fix it. Because
I would
we've
say
been there
thank you,
before.
though, because we're finally dealing with it. We're not ignoring it, and it's been ignored too long. And now we're finally dealing with it. And I appreciate that this administration's dealing with it. It's been an issue for way too long.
That's it, Mayor. I just wanted to give the
Okay.
board some updates of some of the things we have going on, some of the things they need to start thinking about. We'll start working towards
Anyone
that.
else, directors? If not, then I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We are adjourned.